Today we're sitting down with Francois van der Merwe. Francois is the CEO of the NICA AI and Data Intelligence Division. Welcome, Francois. Francois, is the current org structure still relevant in the age of agentic AI, right? We are not here to talk about AI in the abstract form, right? We're here to talk about AI and how its relevancy, not for Fortune 500 companies, but for companies that we see on a daily basis, the small company, the medium-sized company, some of the enterprise businesses that we deal with. And between you and I, we've had endless debates about what that could look like for our company, the NICA Technology Group, and how we could evolve for the age that we find ourselves to. What are your thoughts, Ron?
Yeah, so I mean, you and me have had multiple conversations around that, and I think we need to maybe go a little bit back and understand where does the org chart come from, right? So the org chart as we know it today comes from actually a gentleman by the name Ronald Coase, which released a paper called The Nature of the Firm in 1937. We call it Coasean economics or whatever the case may be. And what Mr. Coase did was he said that organizations exist because the collaboration or the way employees and work is distributed in an organization gets cheaper in a firm than outside a firm. So what does it mean? It means that when you have a team to create a process or a department or an element of the company, having it inside an organization is cheaper than having to source those functions outside of the function. So what then happened was that came into a hierarchical company structure that we have today. That means the following. You have a CEO sits at the top, and you have intelligence in the company distributed in hierarchy. The finance sits under the CFO, the operations under the COO, security, in our case, the companies we deal with sit under CISOs, right? So now you sit with CEO is trying to facilitate strategy at the top, and you've got intelligence of finance all the way distributed through the CFO, lower levels at the bottom. What you then sit to is you sit with a middle layer of management that fundamentally is there to translate the strategy from the top into execution at the bottom. So that's the org chart today. So your question is the org chart still relevant or the organizational structure we have today? I think if you think about it, what's 1937? It's 90 years ago. We've been MBAs, we both have MBAs in MBAs and business books and all those things. We've learned this is how our company runs.
Yes.
But with AI over the last 2 years, we need to understand that intelligence has now been completely democratized.
Yeah.
So we now need to ask the question, what happens when intelligence gets distributed, especially at this middle layer of management, where translation from strategy to execution can potentially all be done with artificial intelligence, right? So that answers the question.
I suppose so, Francois, but we should not take away from Mr. Roberts, because I suppose it was relevant for the time that it was built for, right?
Yes.
It worked because companies worked, companies made money, and building on that middle management that existed to coordinate production of intelligence, from what I understand. I want to come back to that later because I think it's really important to understand the relevancy of middle management going forward. Francois, why should we now question this 1937 model?
Yeah, so remember what Cal said. He said that coordination in the company becomes cheaper in an organization than outside the organization, all right? And that was true. That was true until you can get this 2-person team that can build a feature out in an afternoon using Claude Code. That coordination cost where we say it's cheaper in an organization, that's not true anymore. Because that coordination tax that you're kind of paying with meetings, just a meeting to build a feature is more expensive than right now actually building the feature. So that's why we need to question the whole premise around, does the Coase framework is sure it's relevant, but how relevant is it? And should we not rethink the structure in the age of where intelligence is completely democratized. I mean, remember, the company is built on hierarchical intelligence in the past.
Yeah.
That's no longer the case. Intelligence is extremely available to everybody right now.
While I agree with you there, Francois, I want to build on that point because, and we're going to come back to it later, I don't want us to forget about the importance of data, auditable data, clean data, relevant data for these, because we've seen how AI is actually failing in companies because of the lack of auditable, clean, reliable data.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, the stats are clear around this about, I guess, in anyone that's right now over the last 2 years trying to deploy AI methodologies in an existing business, the stat says 80% of that fails. And one needs to ask the question, why does it fail?
Yes.
Remember now, we sit with a 90-year-old framework with approval levels, multiple layers of human approval levels in organization.
Yeah.
And we now need to want to slap on a AI process in it.
Yes.
The problem is not the intelligence that he put on. The problem is the human approval levels is still the same in this hierarchical structure that we found ourselves on in the past.
Yeah. That's very interesting, Francois. So we've seen that this 89-year-old, 90-year-old model is broken in the current format. But I don't expect that we're just going to fall into a pile of AI agents. I hope we're not going to do that.
No.
Right? And overnight, but we must expect that change is coming, and change is coming quickly. How important is it that we prepare for this change?
Yes. Yashmita, I think to get back to the place where we replacing hierarchical structure in a company with intelligence. So, and if you look at the organization, that if we now lift this organization up and we ask what it looks like, it fundamentally rests on 3 pillars.
And if I could just stop you there, Francois, I've been reading about an octopus organization where the central head is the brain and the tentacles reaches out and finds intelligence, and it's very, very fluid. Is that where we're moving?
It's exactly where we're moving to. You know, I listened to a podcast about 2-3 years ago by one of the top tech executives. I think it was the founder of Uber. And he called it actually cognitors. He said the future company could very well be a cognition engine. Let's call it, there's an AI that acts as the CEO, and we're going to get to what you and me believe the structure should be and what we're doing in the company. But it could very well be that a company of the future is there's an artificial intelligence that acts as the CEO. You've got these cognition engines that acts like HR, or is it still human resources? Maybe it's human and AI resources that we're managing, sales, operations, security, and each one of these nodes have its own level of intelligence. So what does employees then look like in those nodes?
Yeah.
You know, do they, if the intelligence is now distributed to a node, what does humans do? Do we still own intelligence? You know, I mean, you and me talk about it many times with our kids, right?
Yeah.
With the age of AI, should they still try and memorize the 10 steps of osmosis?
Yeah.
Okay, when life is way beyond it. The same question is in companies right now.
Yeah.
How much should we know about the subject? Is subject matter experts still, or should we rather do the skills around how could humans do exception handling? How can humans work with agentic AI systems instead of trying to be intelligent, where the intelligence is now maybe one level away from us? So yes, that octopus structure is potentially where we are.
Well, then I think it sounds like a recursive loop is what you're referring to, Francois. And then building on that, what should we then keep and what should we change?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if we then look at the organization, think about 3 pillars, right? The 3 things that stay is you need to have a purpose engine. All right. And yes, we're talking a vision, and you behind us bringing EQ to AI as our mission statement, or one of our values, or one of our taglines. But you need to have a purpose engine. If we can visually explain that, and we'll get the guys of the podcast to maybe create a visualization of this, but we'll have a purpose engine. And what we do there is, what do we do well? What should we do? Why do we exist? Why don't we exist? And how do we deal with priorities in the purpose of our organization? That's pillar one. The second pillar is a operational engine. All right. And the operational engine fundamentally talks about really 5 things. All right. It talks about decisions. How does decisions get made? It talks about learning. Once we make decisions, how do we learn from it? The operating core, which I'll explain in a second, which is the thing that might replace the org chart, the operating core, or amend the org chart. All right. Then we move to defensibility. What do we do as an organization if everybody got access to the same AI intelligence? How do we make our organizations defensible? And the last one within the operating engine is capability. All right. So remember 3 pillars. The one is the purpose engine. The other one is the operating engine. And the other one is the structure, the operating structure of an organization. All right. And the structure, again, is 5 things. And I'm going to keep it very simple. And we'll put it up on the screen as well. On the 3 pillars, we talked about operational. We now talk structural. Before I go structural, think about a plane. All right. A plane without an engine will stall.
Yeah.
All right. And an engine without a structure, all right, means nothing. It goes nowhere.
Yeah.
It can't fly. So that's the structure. So what does a structure of an organization now look like? The structure engine in an age of agentic AI. So the first thing is it's safe autonomy. AIs need to be able to move at a point where humans still need to be responsible for decision making. So AI can move, but humans remain responsible. That's safe autonomy.
He said oversight.
That is oversight, but I'll get to human oversight in a second, because oversight fundamentally encapsulate, let's call it the new org chart. All right. So we in the 3 pillars of a company. All right. Purpose, engine, structure. All right. So we have safe autonomy in the structure now, structure side. We have human architecture. Humans, we need to be very deliberate of where our humans fit into organization like this. I mean, human in the loop. It's like everybody say human in the loop, but that becomes very important in the agentic structure. Where does the human sit, and what roles do they fulfill? The third one is adaptive design. Companies need to adapt very fast. So how do you create the structure of organization to adapt very fast? You have the purpose control. We talked about the purpose engine. Agentic AI, the moment we have a workflow triggering and it violates anything in our purpose, that workflow needs to stop immediately. So your purpose becomes codified within the organization in agentic AI. And the 5th piece of the structure is threshold boundaries. Fancy word, but what we're fundamentally saying is the API layer. My agent need to talk to that company's agent. How do we protect from a security point of view that boundary where these AIs can talk to each other? All right. So we've got purpose engine, we've got the operational engine, and we've got the structural engine. That kind of underpins the company. All right. And now we talked about human oversight. What does the org chart now do? So the org chart fundamentally, and we know this, you talk about recursive self-improvement, the company, you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
The org chart is no longer hierarchical. It now starts with purpose at the bottom.
Yeah.
Think about a triangle. We've got your purpose at the bottom, and we just talked about your purpose. Why do we exist, and what we don't do as an organization, all right? And then priority management within that. The second layer is orchestration. Sorry, I'm lying to you. Collection.
Yeah.
You talked about data.
Yes.
Everything is data. So we've got our purpose layer.
Yes.
We've then have a collection layer where we collect data, whether that be within the human space, operational space, security space, technical space, or sales environment. We collect data. We then need to give context to data. Data is the 3rd section.
Yeah.
All right. Once we have data, what context do we give it to the relevance of the purpose we just mentioned? From context, we go to decisioning.
Yeah.
So, right. So we've got purpose, we've got collection of data, we've got context on the data, and then we make decisions on the data. And the last 2 is, once we've made decisions, how do we orchestrate and take action? And then the nice part is, everybody says it, recursive self-improvement. How do we learn from this whole environment in a recursive way? Now, nowhere did I say here there is a finance department or there is a operations department. Those things will still exist. But in this loop, it doesn't matter because the data lives in all those departments. And decisioning is going to be geared according to your purpose in whatever sector or vertical we will then.
Then I think we must make it real now for companies, Francois, because that sounds both futuristic. And I'm just wondering when we're going to reach in singularity. It's making me a little bit concerned. But let's bring it home now to somebody that's listening to different types of companies. Maybe a startup founder who's just starting, maybe an SME or a medium-sized company like ours. And then I'm quite keen to understand what could happen to an APSA as an example.
Yeah, a large organization. All right. So let's talk about the first one, a one-person company. I mean, that's the easiest one.
Yeah.
All right. You have a cloud architecture that you go wherever you want to get your cloud environment from.
Yeah.
You don't need a SAP.
Yeah.
You don't need a HubSpot or a Salesforce. You need ChatGPT, Claude Code, you need an IDE, doesn't matter which one, Andy Grab, it doesn't matter. And you build your features. All right. So it becomes AI native from day one.
And let me stop you there. AI native, explain that.
It's a good example. So if we say AI native, let's think about it's not in the notes, but let's take our own organization quickly into account. Okay. So Yash, we have up until very recently, and we're busy transitioning to this, we have a CRM.
Yes.
All right. There's many of them, and we use Monday.com. Everybody knows Monday.com, right? That's our CRM. Within our CRM, we have a different ticketing system, all right, where all our tickets and those things live in our organization. We work on purchase orders from clients. We send quotes out, and we've got a quoting tool. All right, whereby we send quotes out. We've got a accounting system. All right, which we receive the purchase orders, we do the invoicing, and then we have internal people running around all over the place. Okay, so that's not AI native.
No.
That is the current structure. We've got multiple silos of technology sitting all over the place. So let's take that example, and we bring it very AI native.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to replace our salespeople because we sit in enterprise sales, where we have people that go and sit with executives, and it is complex selling. All right, cybersecurity, AI data intelligence is not easy concepts. So the people will exist, but do we still have a Monday.com? And our side? Well, very soon we won't.
Yes.
Because all of these technologies has completely been condensed into a single system that manages all of it.
And what does it say about software as a service companies now? Are they on their way out?
Well, I don't know. All I can say is they're on the way out for us. In our organization, within the next month, I guess, with the exception of our accounting platform, we won't use any of them. All right. All of that collapse. Single database with all our data in, context around all of these data structures, permission levels completely condensed, which maybe we're moving now from the one-person band into ours. What are we busy doing, Yash? Practically, we are taking all our workflows within sales. We then take our workflows around what happens from sales. We've mapped out every single one of those workflows. It took us a very long time. We're still busy with that. Within these workflows, we've got multiple human elements for decision making, milestones, approvals that need to happen. We are now making decisions to condense that in the least amount of approvals possible. So that things can move very, very fast. All right. So now the sales does a quote within the system. That quote automatically triggers workflows within our own system. All over because data is driven, database is driven, we don't have the approvals of everything that need to happen. Our chief revenue officer do not need to approve a quote because those approvals are codified now within our system. It just gets sent out. It's verified against the quote that goes out, the pricing we have that's automatically verified with the pricing we get from the vendor, the approved profits already in there. No one makes decisions. We've stripped out all the decision layers so that we can condense it. So that's,
or maybe the type of decisions that don't need to be made anymore. It's the types that can be codified, not the big ones.
Which is a great point now, because now you asked the earlier question. You said, what happens now with this middle management layer?
Yes.
Okay, because we're saying the translation running around approvals, we're saying we're taking that away from middle management, right? Where do they move now? they're still in the organization. But
Yeah.
what they now deal with is what humans should be dealing with,
Yeah.
exception handling.
Yeah.
Working within agentic systems to improve this process
Yes.
so that we can do more with
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last point is, what does big organizations do? Now, both of us by no means are executives in enterprise customers, right, or enterprise companies, but we do deal with many of them.
Yes.
We have banks as clients. We've got very large institutions, government institutions as clients. So I can't tell them what they might do, but I would guess, and we've spoken about it many times, right? So AI native organization could be then built workflow at a time. So if you have a bank and there is a process in the organization that you want to build an AI native organization, you could very well create a complete new PTY, the AI native PTY. You then take one or two of you go sit and you ask, what is my highest revenue workflows and what is my highest cost workflows in the organization? Strip that out, bring it into this digital twin of the organization. Run this on simulations until it gives you exactly what you have in this organization, and then move that workload to this company.
Yeah.
Now, this is an AI company. You don't brute force any AI into organization. And that's why it's failing, because that's what the guys are doing. They are brute forcing an AI process onto this old way of thinking. Let's call it Coasean economics.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Build a digital twin, rethink that workflow end to end completely different. Run a simulation on it until it is as good or beats it, and then move that workflow out of the old company into the AI native organization. And over time, you sit with the AI native organization or elements of your company that's completely transformed.
But what's going to motivate them to do that, Francois? Because obviously they're going to, we work with large corporates and all they care about is the business case for AI now. Are they going to see, I don't know, faster turnaround when it comes to client onboarding, as an example? Are they going to see an increase in revenue? What is the motivation for them to do that? Because currently middle management is the glue in this organization. Why would they move
to this native company?
Yes.
Well, I think it's on both sides, Yash.
Or maybe what would happen if they don't move?
That's maybe the better question.
Yeah.
I guess a couple of things. The first one is the competitor that is doing this, they are collapsing their cost to execute.
Yeah.
Both the cost and the time to do it. If we have, I mean, all companies, I guess, work like us. Multiple systems, the time we are compressing now to get to quotes that get out, operational elements in the company being deployed. It is a fraction of the time. I'm talking a week process flow now can happen in a morning in our own company. So we're collapsing order to cash. We're collapsing the cost to deploy. Our people, which is maybe the second reason they need to do it, is your people will leave if you don't do it. People will move to a place where they can be busy with the things that they want to be busy with, not running around translating what we use middle management for. They want to use their human skills for building, exception handling, and so forth. And I guess the last point is you will find yourself irrelevant. Your 5-year plan is no longer relevant. And if you continue going around this way while your competitor, let's take a law firm. If you have a 3-person law firm, AI native, uses Claude, we see it on our own. Lawyers are still there. They're extremely valuable. But we now going to use them much later in the workflow. We go to them now understanding the contract, having done triage on that whole agreement, know exactly what we want. Now we go to them. What would take 2 weeks now can take 1 day. And the attorney firm that catches this is going to really bring damage to those that don't. And that's, I guess, the big reasons why we need to think about these things as organizations.
I think, Francois, we live in a world outside of South Africa, you and I, because I think if we were not faced with the labor laws that we have, it might have been easier. Because how do we then fit what you are saying into the South African? Because the laws are there, it's a conundrum. Okay, it's there to protect the people that work for us, but then it's also kind of restrictive in the way that it allows us to move. So what do we do there? And then building on that, do we have enough AI literacy in South Africa to move where you think we should be moving to?
Yeah, good points. And this is let me start with the first one. Is we're not replacing, we're not taking away jobs. I think that needs to be very clear. And when it comes within our structure with BE and the labor law and those things, it could very well play in your favor because we have specific budgets for skills development, right? And what we're now doing is we are developing people away from coordination and translation into managing systems, exception handling. So we can very well use the structure and the structure that the country is giving to us within the labor law, leverage those elements to do exactly what we're supposed to do in South Africa. And that is skills development, right? And then to your second point, do we have enough AI literacy in it? And I guess the short answer is not enough at all. But I mean, this whole thing is only 2-3 years old.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, how do you get the literacy? And that comes back to my first point. In South Africa, companies are incentivized to develop these skills. And we don't need PhDs in data science all over the place to work for us. In fact, we have technology, we have in Nika, we've collapsed that completely, where AI does data science for you. So the tech is there to do those things. We are looking for people that can think a little bit more laterally and that understand systems and business. And those skills is what we need to develop. And if we want to call that AI literate, then we call it AI literate. I remember what we're saying in this podcast is we're saying intelligence has now been democratized. All right. And we don't train AI engineers here. We're training people that understand business process and that can look at exceptions and know how to read a dashboard.
And I mean, I'm having an educational specialist coming onto our podcast as well, talking about the state of education in South Africa and whether it's relevant, and we know it's not relevant. But very, very quickly, Francois, how do you think we should change education in South Africa? And I'm talking about basic, before university entry, because we have loads of them entering the job market now and doing still the very traditional learning that they do at school. I mean, who cares when the Anglo-Boer War was? Do we really need to know that?
We both have kids. Yours a little bit older than mine. Mine is about to finish school. I've had this conversation so many times with you as well, right? And with many people. Is our kids should not be educated on the 10 steps of this or the Boer War. We should be thinking about problem solving, critical thinking, ethical, moral questions that they're facing, ethical dilemmas. Just like the Coasean way of thinking is 90 years old, our education system is almost just as
old. It is.
The stuff we decided is what we need is as old as the Coasean economic theory exists back then. So we've been teaching the wrong stuff to our kids for a very long time. They're coming out of school and they're stepping into this world where they think it's white picket fencing and this is how a job works and this is how things work. The world has changed with in November 2022. It has changed, and I don't think our education system is
it's not ready. It's not ready. It's not keeping up.
No.
I mean, if I look at this at the school that my son went to, which was a private school, they did try an attempt to kind of modernize the education in line with where we're going. But if we look at the public education system, I think we're lagging there. And while we're talking about public, how do you think the public sector should change or embrace what's coming?
Yeah. Look, that's sometimes it's difficult thing to answer, but we could look at the UAE. All right, we could look at the UAE that generates visas within 2 to 3 days, completely. All right, start to finish, and we often takes time. In fact.
But is that about literacy or is that about willingness, Francois?
That's about willingness. All right. And the first government that in the world that will accept this is what's happening, drive skills development within the areas that we are saying right now, and that is willing to collapse these things into departmental workflows.
China.
Like China, because
Yeah.
the moment the citizens can benefit from governmental AI native workflows in things that touch a service delivery and how we perceive the government, things will change. And again, we're not saying don't create jobs. We're saying change the jobs you create, deploy these native systems, and serve the citizen better.
Yes. How long do we have, Francois?
I'm very bullish on this,
Yeah, I know.
right? So,
No.
It's not 5 years.
Yeah.
It's not 5 years.
Yeah.
I think if companies do not start with at least looking at their workflows, starting to automate specific workflows in the next 12 months. And I mean, just think about how things have changed in the last 12 months. They will have a problem.
Yeah.
I think we have 12 months to start effectively deploying decisions like this within our organization.
I think that's kind of scary, Francois, but I also think it's very realistic. So what should a SMME or a medium-sized business do like today or in this week or in this month so that we can close this 12-month gap and it doesn't arrive sooner than we think? Because the ground is shifting under us as we speak on a daily basis. Claude 5 has been extended. Its free version has been extended for another week or so. Chat 5.6 is out there. Is there even a ground that we're standing on?
Yeah, I know. So the best thing you can do is and the structure that we are deploying, that we're talking about now in our organization is go write down your purpose. Right, go and just take a piece of paper and go write down your purpose. Why do you exist, and why don't you exist?
Yeah.
All right. The second thing you do is go write down your most profitable workflows, the things that make you the most money, and what does it look like in your organization, and maybe the things that cost you the most money, that cost you the most in your organization. Go write those 3 things down.
Yeah.
And then go to the next step where you ask, how do I collapse decision making in this process? How do I take away the decision making loops and milestones in a process like this for me to automate it? If you can just do that, and you can go play with AI, go play with Claude and all these things, and you can even ask it to help you with this workflow and how can I automate it? I mean, start there for guys that hasn't done.
And me, that's not even a proficient in IT. I'm proficient in engineering. I was able to build many
An internal
applets.
system.
Yes, many applets. So if I can do it, I think a lot of people can do it. Francois, thank you so much for giving us your time today,
Pleasure.
for both scaring us and empowering us. And we look forward to speaking to you some more.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.